Hi, everybody. We are back with another race in the Big Data Beards virtual race to Splunk Conf 20. And we are super excited to have our race event sponsor, Red River Technologies, sponsoring this race from Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, virtually. Kevin Steepro is joining us. He's the Vice President of Engineering from Red River Technologies. And for those of you who may have missed last year's road trip to Conf, Kevin actually joined us in the RV. But for those of you who missed it, why don't you, Kevin, tell us a little bit about what you and your team do there at Red River?
Sure. No, it's great to be back, and definitely a little different environment, but I think everybody's kind of adapting. So my team at Red River will really charged with doing the pre-sales engineering support for our account teams. So that includes our customer solution architects, or those that are out in the field with our account executives, making sure that we understand the actual problems and the mission for our customers, and how we can help to better their situation. And then the other piece of that is our subject matter experts, and they are design architects. They go really, really deep in certain technologies, certain product sets, certain vendors in some cases, and they provide that real deep subject matter expertise. So when it really gets down and dirty, we've got the pre-sales team that can go and make sure that the customer actually understands what they're going to be getting out of this, and hopefully there's no surprises. Can't say that there never are, but that's the goal here.
Yeah, the real world scenarios do have a little bit of imperfection, and that's okay. But I tell you what, we get to drive virtually in this racing series some absolutely beautiful McLaren MP4 GT3s. And I'm curious, Kevin, from your perspective, if you had to pick, because the McLaren, beautiful car, pretty pricey, or an RV like the one that you got to come hang out with us in last year, which one do you pick, an RV or a McLaren?
Let's see. Well, I think at this stage of my life, I might hit with the McLaren, but I don't think I'm too far from the RV, where I'm like ready to just go see the country and explore, and especially everything going on now, the advantages an RV could provide. My parents have one, so they're sending pictures from all the places they can go and be socially distanced in the outdoors and everything else. So there's a little bit of jealousy there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the RV industry has been one of those, few industries that have boomed in the current pandemic crisis. So lots of new RV owners out there, which is super fun. Now, tech conferences and the ways that we used to travel are obviously very different these days. And I'm curious, from your perspective, your team, lots of engineers and subject matter experts that oftentimes, go to conferences to keep themselves up to speed on the latest and greatest innovations in technology. I'm curious how your team's finding, or maybe the feedback that you're getting from organizations that are consuming these technology conferences in a virtual context today.
They're absolutely getting better. I think when they first started, everybody was, just trying to figure it out. The technology is kind of been there, but the culture of doing something like that has been very different. So I think we're all adapting. We're kind of learning. The biggest challenge I know I faced personally when they first started was I've got everything else going on around me still. And when I would go to a conference, I'm not secluded, but I'm sheltered off a little bit, where I can go and if I get into that session or whatever, my attention can be 100% focused because I don't have the dings of email and everything else going off in the same way. Virtually, in the virtual conferences, that was happening, and I was getting distracted. And so I've really trying to adjust my perspective too, and the way that I approach it. And my entire team, we've all kind of talked a lot about this, and like I said, they're getting better and better. We all miss actually being in person and the advantages to that, but there's been a couple that have actually done with VR headsets and some other things, and the more immersive experience has really been impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll be back to talk with Kevin a little bit later in the broadcast about how his team is helping organizations get the most out of data and achieve success with Splunk's data to everything platform. But now it's time to go racing deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, Austin, Texas, home of Circuit of the Americas. Kevin, why don't you kick us off here for the Big Data Beards virtual race to .conf and from Austin, Texas.
Everybody, start your engines.
Welcome, everyone, to the great state of Texas. We are at the Circuit of the Americas course for race number 7 in the Big Data Beards virtual race to .conf. Congrats to Tom West for taking the pole here. Turns out he's the fastest beard. But today's race brought to us by our friends at Red River Technologies. Now, Brett, you and I have spent a lot of time down there in Central Texas together. How do you feel about this race being in Austin?
Corey, so happy that this race is in Austin. This is probably the one race that I wish was not virtual so we could be eating some delicious barbecue before the race and after the race.
Absolutely. Well, you can just imagine the sweet smell of post-stoke and mesquite smoke, slow cooking those beef briskets. Oh, man, it's got me hungry.
Yeah, Corey, and hopefully that smell doesn't distract any of our drivers today.
Well, it's certainly not distracted Tom West. Tom West putting down an incredible pole time there to lead off, and turns out he is the fastest beard today, and we'll see if he can maintain that. You know, Brett, one of the things we want to talk about is the keys to the race. Like, what do you think is it going to take for Tom West to maintain leadership in a race on a track like this?
Yeah, Corey, well, today pull out your scope because it's all about accuracy. We have 20 turns on this track. Some of them are very sharp, some of them are switchbacks. So we need to make sure that we're finding our brake markers and we're hitting them consistently every time so we can maintain proper speed going in and out of those turns.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the longer tracks that we're going to face, and as you said, very complex set of turns. This track is home to the Grand Prix for the U.S. on the F1 circuit every year, so an absolute top-level track.
Yeah, Corey, this is almost a 3.5 mile track, 20 turns, couple hairpin. I mentioned the switchbacks earlier. Lots of places to get caught up.
Yeah, well, as Tom West leads the pack out, he's bunching up the crowd. What do you think some of the tactics Tom is going to use to keep the crowd behind him?
Yeah, Tom is known to deploy some tactics to help, mess up the pack, get the pack disoriented. So maybe he's going to do that today to kind of give himself an advantage going into the start.
Absolutely. Well, we come up the hill to a blind left-hand turn, and, we've got cold tires, as we talked about. A lot of times there's turn one can really make or break the race. You see the Splunk cars going 3 wide. They're looking good in those liveries. Tom West getting a little bit of a gap ahead of him. The crowd is starting to thin out and get some space. But this first section of the course is a bunch of kind of back and forth, not really classic chicanes, so to say, but nice quick turns that'll hopefully heat up the tires pretty quickly so that they can start to maintain some speed and stickiness as they go around the track.
And Corey, after you get through those turns, you have a sharp turn, then you have the biggest straightaway of the race or the track today, and then you get into those switchbacks. So what do you think? Where do you think on this track the warm tires are going to set in?
Well, I think it's probably going to be, once we get through a full lap, I think we'll have plenty of heat in the tires. But this is one of those tracks that, if I think about the things that are most important to success, it's really about identifying your braking markers and really staying online. While you do have there, you can see on the track some of that green concrete where you can go out and run out just a little bit. You want to avoid incident points because we've seen in the races so far that clean races are fast races. But this is one of those where you've got enough speed that you absolutely got to hit your braking markers.
And based on the performance yesterday, where round track we thought was going to be a relatively clean race, it turned out not to be the case. I'm nervous to see what happens today from an incident point standpoint.
Absolutely. Well, looks like we had a few cars underestimate the importance of braking markers. The Splunk Signal FX car, you, Brett, slid off there in that leaving that straightaway. It is absolutely tough to get slowed down that quickly.
Yeah, I should have taken my own advice and paid more attention and been more accurate in my turns, Corey.
Well, it's going to be the keys to the race. It's all about that accuracy. Bring your scope, get it dialed in. But we see the crew coming in here. We're going to wrap up the first lap here, and looks like not too much of a shakeup in the front of the pack. Westy continuing to just run in clean air, which is hopefully going to be the story for him, is to maintain that clean air and clean, smooth racing throughout. Well, we are excited to have Red River Technologies back with us today. And oh no, the Splunk Enterprise security car goes off there. We talked about accuracy. Sometimes even if you hit your braking markers, if you get back in the gas too quickly coming out of those turns, these are high horsepower cars that can oversteer quite rapidly if not careful. But let's go check in with Kevin Steepro from Red River Technologies.
Hey, thanks, Corey. We're back with Kevin. Kevin, it's great to see you again. I know last time we were together in this RV. Now we're doing this virtually, but it's always great to have you back. I want to start just by understanding what Red River's data analytics strategy is in 2020.
Yeah, and last year when we got together and we're talking about this, one of my pet peeves has always been, we've got all this data, we've got the analytics. What are we doing with it? I really want to see our customers do that. So our focus really in 2020 has been, how do we make that information really more actionable for our customers? Bringing into from different data sources, being able to correlate that information together, and really, again, understand what our customer's mission is and what is the end result they're trying to do, trying to achieve, not necessarily what's the intermediary step? As an engineer and as a solution provider, we have to understand all those intermediary steps. But if we don't understand really where we're trying to get and why our customers are asking us these questions in the first place, we're never going to help them get there. So in 2020, it's really been focused on how do we consume data in a more effective, efficient way, but then how do we understand what the correlation between all that data is, and then apply more advanced models, whether that be AI, machine learning, those types of things, but again in a way that's actually useful to our customers rather than having them spend it.
Yeah, so I've heard correlate multiple data streams. I think I know the answer to this, but where does Splunk fit into this data analytics strategy at Red River?
Again, with the Splunk, I was a huge fan when the data to everywhere concept, because that, again, it fits with my pet peeve of make the data useful and actionable. So Splunk is a huge part of our strategy. I mean, we've really focused a lot of energy and effort in terms of not just learning it and getting familiarity with our additional certifications, but again, how does it apply, and then what are the additional product sets that Splunk is bringing in, or those that are adjacent. In some cases, there's some things that need to be done before it gets into Splunk. So how can we help our customers with that? But Splunk at that end result, you're really being focused on that. And like I said, I was really excited when I heard the data everywhere concept and platform. Just it fits right in with what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, I really do like data to everything. I think it transcends some of the bread and butter use cases that Splunk is known for, security and IT ops. It really does create any data source. You can answer any question. When you think of data everything, what are some of the things that you're seeing that are above and beyond kind of the traditional security IT ops use cases?
So we're seeing a lot in terms of how do we bring in data from like an ERP or CRM. And how do we tie that into things that are going on in the network or in a security perspective? IoT obviously exploding, and that's my background. I'm super excited to finally see all this telemetry data coming from these sensors. Being a way, they're finding some way to really correlate that and make that useful for our customers. And we've even seen things in the more traditional SCADA style systems with BACnet and some of the OT type environments. How do we bring some of that data in? Been really important for our customers. Again, I think the IoT thing really being really a big question on our customers, is they've got sensors out there everywhere. In the military, they're looking at putting it into the jets or the tanks or all those types of wearables on the warfighter themselves. It's lots of data out there, but we got to be really careful about that data coming. One, we don't want the enemy to intercept it, but two, if a bad decision is made on that data coming in, what happens if we detect hypoxia and all of a sudden do counteractions to that, but that ends up being the wrong thing because the sensor it was either went bad or the data was misinterpreted, things like that. So it's the mission criticalness of that data is becoming more and more important to our customers, especially as we take more automated actions on it with things like Phantom and other workflow management tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's being able to get the action or to be able to make the decision, but it has to be mission critical. So all of the production things have to be woven into these solutions as well. And I'm curious, what are some of the technologies that you're seeing out there to help drive this mission criticality, or to help ensure that we're doing IoT, but we're doing IoT in a way that we can make the right decisions and in the right times?
I mean, one of the big things, obviously, is COVID and what it's done by forcing everybody to home. And not only am I using a work laptop at home, but in some cases I may have a Wise Cam that became my webcam now, or I've got to go buy a webcam. How do we know that that's really doing the right things? Microphones, or people want more clear and concise sound and everything else coming through that. So we've got all that. Then just all the BYOD things that continue to come onto that space. So that work from home, those insights as to what's happening there and everything else has been huge. On the other part, we've really seen a big push from DoD into the how do we do more with the warfighter at the edge, and not have to wait till all these decisions come back. So how can we distribute that processing and things like that? And as I was saying, the whole concept of we've got all this data coming in, but am I making the right decision? I think that a lot of people are really seeing that challenge now too. Of if the data's coming in, can I trust it, right? I mean, who knows what's protecting that anymore? But is the data accurate and actionable and everything else? So I think from the obviously the work from home thing has been huge because of the explosion of BYOD type devices just blowing in, but also on the DoD really focusing on that mission critical critical infrastructure. As more and more people, the remote working becomes more and more explosive. The critical infrastructure, more people have now had time to kind of identify, well, where are the holes in work from home? I bet you I can apply those on against critical infrastructure too. So we've got a lot of customers that are really concerned about making sure that those systems are running and functional and everything else as well. So I think it's really just the proliferation and the readiness and the availability of the devices.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kevin, we're going to hear more from you later on in the broadcast. For right now, let's go back to Corey and check in on the race.
Well, thanks, Brett and Kevin. Great to hear from the team at Red River and super appreciative of their sponsorship. But the story behind the scenes here is Tom West has lost position to Intel car being piloted by Simon Yep today.
Yeah, Corey, as we see these leading cars take these turns, I'm interested to learn more about turn mechanics and the art of the turn. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with these cars, like any car on a racetrack, you have a defined amount of traction that the tires can provide. And so you have to find a way to balance that between acceleration, braking, and turning. And as you enter a turn, you want to get your speed down so that you can transfer the weight to the front of the car, but also slow down enough to where you can make the turn and those front tires will hold. As you crest the apex being that point in the turn that's sort of the arc, the top of the arc, you want to make sure that you're getting back into the gas, but getting back into it smoothly, because as you accelerate, you're moving the weight back to the back of the car, taking pressure off those front tires, so potentially lessening the grip for turning. So it's really about balancing those pressures and the balance of the car and balancing acceleration, turning. Oh, and here we see a quick recap. What happened here, Brett?
Well, it looks like Kyle and the Splunk FX car were going at it for a good portion of this race and just lost control there, Corey.
Well, let's go check in with Tom West about some of the dashboard work.
Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying the race so far. So today what I wanted to do is give you a very brief overview as to what we've been doing with our Splunk dashboards and how we've made them so much more different from what you would see out the box. Those of you who have gone and worked with Splunk dashboards before, that have seen our dashboards we've put together for this race series, will know that they look a little bit different from normal. However, there's no new Splunk dashboarding framework applied. There is no advanced HTML. It's good old-fashioned simple XML with some token handling and some CSS. That's all that there is that's different. And how we go and do this is that we customize the colors based on a lookup that stores every color for every race, every logo that we want to use. All that is handled within a single lookup. Also, we take advantage of tokens to store the values within that lookup and then read those into CSS, which then goes and loads the dashboard to make it appear as it does. Give you an idea of how that looks in principle. We've got race 1 results for Indianapolis and how this is themed to our race sponsor, which was Red River. And then we switch over to Laguna Seca. It's the exact same dashboard, but this time it's all themed for our race sponsor at Laguna Seca, who were Splunk. As we go back to Indianapolis and we have a look at different inputs, we may want to have a look at the crashes, at the incident points for that race. Selecting that will then go and set some other tokens behind the scenes to hide and display the area that we really want to bring focus to. And to give you an idea as well as to why we've used the CSS and what it would look like if we hadn't have used it, we flick over here and we can see this is the exact same dashboard for Indianapolis, showing the overview but with no CSS. So when using CSS in the right way, it can become a really powerful tool to also extend your ability to tell the right data story for you. Now, this is a very, very brief overview. A couple of my fellow Splunk trustees have got an amazing session planned at 3 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday, October 21st. All about the Splunk dashboard journey from past to present to future, and I really recommend checking it out. They're people that I very much respect in this area and would highly recommend giving it a try out. Now, hope you enjoy the rest of the race. Back to you guys in the studio.
Well, thanks, Tom. Great to see the beautiful dashboard work the team's doing there, and hopefully the folks at home are getting a chance to dive into those and take a look behind the scenes with our data.
Yeah, Corey, but right now the name of the race is consistency, and you see the Intel car, Westy, and Buttercup just maintaining their positions right now in kind of a steady 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, absolutely. That for positions 1 through 7, really pretty tidy up there, and if any sort of accidents or wrecks happen, you probably could see some lead changes.
Yeah, Corey, but I think what's most exciting is Brett yet again in number 10 spot. He seems like he's there all the time.
Well, if you're nothing else, you're consistent, Brett, and we're glad to see consistency because at least you can consistently get better. And that's what racing is all about, is constantly honing the skills. There we see the Intel car just, again, running in clean air nicely. But I'll tell you what, let's go back and check in with our friends from Red River Technologies.
All right, thanks, Corey. We're back with Kevin now to talk a lot more about Red River and their partnership with Splunk and the Data to Everything platform. And Kevin, I'm curious, Splunk has made a lot of acquisitions over the recent years, and there's been a lot of innovation, not just with Splunk Enterprise, but outside of the core platform. What are you seeing as being the most exciting, or what are your customers, most excited about within these acquisitions and innovations?
I think for us, a lot of the excitement shows that Splunk is still looking forward. They're still trying to find ways to help us achieve our mission of adding value to our customers, and that the Data to Everything platform. Phantom, for example. I mean, to me, we talked about my pet peeve is actionable. Let's do something with this data. Phantom allows us to really start kicking off those workflows, and how do we start making those types of things happen, balancing out what's automated versus what bubbles up to somebody that they can do a review and still have a one-click perspective on how do I actually kick this off or execute it now. So that's for me, that's been super exciting. Some of the other things around get the understanding the data and being able to get data from different places and having more out of the box capabilities within that has been, again, like I said, it's the Splunk is just not sitting there and saying, oh, we've got the best ingestion tool, we're going to rest on that. No, it's actually continuing to evolve, and a lot of their actions have shown that. And the diversity too. It's not just let's do more and more in security or more and more in ITSI or more, it's how do we, again, bring all these systems together and correlate that data and really make it data to everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like they're making very consistent acquisitions or developments across their entire stream of use cases, IT ops, security, even IoT manufacturing, and AI and machine learning as well. And I think that, to your point, they're not resting on their laurels, right? They're continuously innovating and driving that. So I'm going to ask you to bring out your crystal ball, dust it off, and what are some of the things that you think are going to be the future for Splunk from an innovation? Maybe not really from an acquisition standpoint, but where do you think Splunk's going to go to next?
So I think continued advancement on AI, ML, DL. Here at Red River, we're huge fans of the ML toolkit. We're using it. We're playing with it all the time. We're using it with our customers, really trying to set the stage of what that's going to mean. But I think we're still just scratching the surface of what does that really mean, and then how do we even take that further into more of the deep learning aspect. So I expect to see them do a lot more in evolving that platform, whether it be through acquisition or internal development or anything else. Another area that I really expect them to see is better enablement or more enablement of bringing data in from these sensors, these IoT systems that are out there. But right now, they've done a lot with being able to stream data into the system, which is a lot better than that. The wait for a file to be written, then go pick it up from the file, do everything. I mean, there's delays that can be overcome or everything, but that stream is just that's. As a developer, I would rather get the data straight from the source.
Yeah.
And as part of that, in IoT, there's a lot of pub sub, message queuing infrastructures out there. So I expect to see them really invest some time and energy into making that as easy. And then the third thing, low code, no code. How do we make it easier for customers to build these dashboards and everything else, so that as developers or solution integrators, we can really focus on the harder aspects of things. Not that it's not the hardest thing out there to do, but there's still a lot of learned experience and knowledge and everything else. We're seeing a lot of expansion in that low code, no code environment.
Yeah, well, conf is only a couple of days away, so we'll see what's announced there, right? Now, you talked about machine learning toolkit, and I think that's one of those products within Splunk Enterprise and within Splunk that's continuing to evolve and really, evolve organically. What's Red River doing with the machine learning toolkit?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're actually taking data from, again, any source that we can, and trying to make sure that we've got large enough data sets, and then running it against the machine learning toolkit, on top of ES or ITSI, or just data in general, and it's watching the results come out, because for us it's a great learning experience to kind of have the toolkits process against it, and the results that we were expecting isn't what we're seeing, or we're saying, the data set was so biased in one way that now that becomes the learned model. When an abnormality comes out, it's really not that abnormal. It just wasn't in our data set because of the bias that was there, or the limited amount of data. So we're trying to actually increase our data sets and try apply it. Really, network, again, across network data. How can we better understand what's happening in the network? And start using that to kick off these workflows, or ServiceNow integrations, those types of things that are out there. But the other part of it is really we're using it as a way to educate our team on what is ML, and what happens when you throw a data set at it. It learns a certain thing. So I think that's one of the biggest dangers of AI and ML in general, is the bias of the data set that's applied to it. And from the Workplace Insights initiative that we've been working with Splunk, we've learned a lot too. Where all the training that was done up until March, April, May hit, and all that training didn't mean anything because the entire model changed. And so again, it was a really good way for our team to learn about how ML works, and some of the things that we need to learn, and the conversations that we need to have with our customers about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are you most excited about for Conf this year?
Just, again, getting back up to speed on everything. We've been really focused in with the ML toolkit and Phantom and everything else, but what are the next acquisitions coming? Where's the roadmap going? Unfortunately, I wish I could say it's getting to see everybody, but we're not gonna be there yet. But it's. I'm also excited to see the next iteration of the virtual platform. We talked earlier with Corey about how there's with all these virtual conferences, things have changed, and so this will be probably the fourth or fifth one within 6 or 7 weeks. So it's interesting to see how everybody does them, and how we can learn, because we're in a situation where we have to do some with our customers as well, some virtual conferences and stuff. So it's a good learning opportunity for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kevin, it's always a pleasure having you join us with the Big Data Beard. Glad to have you back this year. Thanks for telling us what Red River is doing with Splunk and the Data to Everything platform. Corey, I'm going to send it back to you so we can get to the conclusion of the race.
Well, thanks, Kevin. It's great to hear from the Red River team and all the great things your organization is doing for Splunk customers. And the story of the racing so far behind the scenes there with Kevin and Brett talking was really that Splunk IT car moving up the leaderboard, passing Kyle and Brett. Brett, I'm curious from your perspective, how much do you enjoy being passed?
Well, Corey, if you're not first, you're last. So you never want to be passed. But I'm telling you, taking these turns as you're seeing here, it's stressful. And I find myself white-knuckling the steering wheel going in and out of those turns.
Absolutely. Well, these cars are being piloted by humans. So as we think about bringing data to everything, it's important to make sure that we look at the data about human performance. So I want to go check in with our buddy Kyle to find out what it looks like to actually collect that human performance data while racing.
Hey Corey, I wanted to jump in and take a look at the data around that last lap. Just because of the Aero car and Splunk security, they seem to be driving so similarly, such a tight race there, that I wanted to take a look at the data and see if it followed, and fortunately it did. So let's dive right in. You can see right here how they change up a little bit at the end of the lap, but this is really the main portion that I really wanted to focus on right here. And as you can see, these are two different cars, but they are both McLarens, two different drivers though, and it's just astounding how close they are, and it absolutely shows it in the footage as well as the data as well. Now this is just the speed, but let's go ahead and take a look at the braking and the throttle and see if that follows suit as well. Now with the braking, what I noticed is that a lot of this middle track, the braking patterns were very similar, but there was enough of a difference there that we took a second look at the replay and realized that it has a bit to do with the sway around the track with the Splunk security car versus the Aero car as well. But let's take a look at the throttle as well. Yeah, and this is what I was wanting to show right here, was just how close they were actually timing their throttle pushes together. We do see a little bit of a breakaway here, with Aero braking a bit on the front end and Splunk Security being able to pull away from it. But really, in that middle portion of that lap was just an amazing amount of tightness of racing there that was really fascinating to see as well. Dive into our dashboard and take a look if you'd like to see for yourself. Back to you on the track.
Hey, thanks, Kyle, for that insight. As we said, these are cars being piloted by humans, and it is interesting to keep an eye on what's going on in the human body as we're racing around the track. I know my stress levels were high. I was getting sweaty palms from time to time, and especially after 7 days of racing. Brett, what's it like to really start to understand that fatigue of day in, day out, having to practice and then slug it out in a competitive scenario? How did that feel for you?
It took a toll. I mean, this isn't just the race part. It's the practicing, it's the qualifying, it's the other practice that we did in preparation for the races. So it was a lot of time in the seat, and it did take a toll. It was tiring, and, wrist injuries aren't common in virtual race car driving.
Absolutely. Thankfully, no real injuries based on the wrecks we've seen. But I tell you what, this track is one of those that is so long that really the cars can get pretty spaced out, so you don't have too much of that action where folks are bumping into each other, because there's plenty of room on the racetrack, and you can see those nice wide berths. No real reason to be bouncing off one another if you don't have to.
Yeah, Corey, and as we see the Splunk car go by here, Conf's only a couple days away. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things you're excited for .conf this year?
Absolutely. Well, this year's .conf obviously is going to be virtual, like pretty much every conference is these days, and we're excited to welcome a whole lot more people to the conf experience than has really ever been possible before. While many folks may not be able to travel, they should be able to, for the most part, be able to access the internet and get access to this great conference. So I'm super excited to see how Splunk delivers the conference. I've heard a lot of talks, and we've talked with some of the folks on these broadcasts about the ways they're creating engaging content and experiences to make it as awesome and fun as possible. I think Splunk.conf is always an incredible learning experience, and I'm excited to see how they make it great this year to be a memorable one, even though we can't be together in person. But one thing for me, highlights Tuesday afternoon. Wow, we have got just a ton of great content going on around sessions at the conference, whether it's your session talking about Dell Technologies and the stories you're helping customers deploy there, but a lot of racing action stuff. McLaren giving presentations. We're going to be giving a presentation about this racing action, and so lots of fun on Tuesday afternoon. So excited for that.
Yeah, and Corey, I'm excited to extend the virtual Race to Conf into Conf with things like the Boss of the Knock and the stuff that the Big Data Beard team's doing there around our data sets, but then also the chance to beat the beards, which will be a really fun experience. And Corey, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're enjoying the racing action, and if you're somebody who wants to go racing on iRacing with us, then we are actually hosting a racing series called Beat the Beards, and there will be races on Tuesday and Wednesday that will be, think of it as like a play-in race. So it's going to be limited to the first 60 folks who sign up. You will need to have access to iRacing. You'll need to have access to the tracks that we're going to race, which is Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Silverstone, and Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And you'll need to have a GT3 class car. And if you have all those things, then certainly head over to bigdatabeard.com/VR2C and sign up to race with us, because the first two races, again, the race on Tuesday and Wednesday, will be race-in races. And the top 10 competitors from those two races will then get to join the Big Data Beard team on Thursday for the Beat the Beards Championship, where you'll get a chance, if you're one of those top 10 in each of those races, those lucky folks, you'll get a chance to see if you can beat the Beards. And if you can beat the Beards, then there's going to be some fun prizes coming your way, and certainly some bragging rights would be maybe one of the best things. But we'll see about the fun prizes.
Yeah, Corey, I'm hoping that I can beat at least one more of the Beards, not just be in last out of the four of us.
Well, you don't have to beat all the Beards, but beat one is good enough. So, Brett, I look forward to you beating up on us. I'd love to see you take the podium. I think that'd be awesome. Well, one thing I'm excited about for the Red River team, too, is we've got a great podcast today that if you haven't tuned in to the Big Data Beard podcast, as you've seen these races daily, well, every single day we've got a podcast that's going live as well with our sponsors. And this conversation is one I don't think you should miss as well. So if you're into podcast, you're into big data, whatever your platform of choice is, just search bigdatabeard.com and you'll find us.
Yeah, Corey, I'm actually super excited for this one. Security is such an important topic, especially in 2020, and and Brian just does a great job delivering a great story around security, especially in the federal government.
Absolutely. Well, we see here there's not too much action in these top 5 positions. That folks have pretty much settled into position. Tom West and Buttercup are really the closest and have the chance to kind of mix it up and fight for that second place position. But I tell you what, the other thing we talked about, you brushed on me shortly there, was the Botan scenario. And if folks aren't familiar with Botan, that is a really cool opportunity and experience for you to interact with data and use Splunk in a gamified way. And Botan stands for Boss of the NOC. There's also Boss of the SOC, which is really for security. And in those scenarios, you have a gamified experience where you can learn to use Splunk or use your Splunk skills to compete with teams that are trying to solve specific scenarios. Now, the Botan scenario that we've created using the iRacing data from the virtual race to .conf is a super introductory scenario. And the idea is for those of you who maybe are new to Splunk, maybe you've never used Splunk before, or you're just trying to figure out how to get started, we have a series of questions that are fun, easy ones that allow you to explore our data set, but start to build on the skills necessary to co-compete in maybe some of those more complex scenarios. So you can sign up by going to conf.splunk.com. Obviously, you can sign up for the conference there. But if you click on the Connect tab, you'll see a Boss of the NOC or BOTN tab, and you can sign up for Boss of the NOC there. And we certainly encourage you folks to join it. We'll be online and live and chatting with folks while they're doing it, just like we have been for these live broadcasts.
Yeah, Corey, and it looks here in the race that the Intel car is continuing to pull away from the rest of the pack.
Absolutely. Well, Simon Yep is actually a Splunk employee driving that car, but it's only right that he's driving a car from a partner because he is the VP of Alliance Engineering over here at Splunk. And so stepping in for the Intel team to help as they had a driver not able to make it. We love to see the partnership and collaboration between Splunk and Intel there. Well, the checkered flag is out, and it looks like without much drama, Simon Yep is going to pilot that Intel car to the finish to win. Congratulations to Simon and the Intel team.
Yeah, Corey, congratulations to Simon and the Intel team. But this has been a really clean race, which is something that we weren't expecting coming into a track like this.
Absolutely. Super clean. And here we see Tom West just chasing down a little bit of lap traffic in Kyle's. He's going to not quite overtake him, but it looks like Tom West will, without too much drama, take second place there. And then assuming everything pans out, it looks like Buttercup will take third. And you know what? I'm excited to take fourth. It's points in the overall championship. And be sure to tune in right after our final broadcast. We're going to have a little award ceremony. But let's go check in now with Tom West about the data behind today's race.
Hi everybody, welcome to another post-race data analysis, this time at the Circuit of the Americas. For me, this was a very interesting race, starting in pole and then dropping down to second and keeping that second place the entire way. I felt very, very different, could feel myself more stressed, could feel my heart rate beating outside my chest almost. I could feel my hands getting really clammy, and we've been wearing fitness bands as we've been doing this, and I wanted to see if they picked anything up, if there's something that I should at least be aware of when taking part in events such as this, and see if there's something that I can do to relax myself, at least being aware of it. And if we have a look at the data in the dashboards, what we can see is my heart rate is high. It's really high, especially at the start at 154 beats per minute, and it stays above 100 right until the very end of the race almost, when it only just drops down and it finishes above 90. Now, someone with a resting heart rate of about 60, that is high, and I just found it very, very interesting having a look at that. To put that into context, if we switch out of our dashboards and just go into my own Strava account, we can see that a walk that I did around the same time, climbing one of the hills in the national park close to us, carrying a buggy, was the only time where I got even close to that heart rate at 158. And that's climbing a hill carrying a little child's buggy, not sitting down racing on a racing wheel. And I thought I'd just leave it there as that being the takeaway for today. Now, special thanks again to our race sponsor, Red River, and back to you in the studio.
Well, thanks, Tom. Always great to get your insights, and congrats again to the team at Intel for winning today's race. Congrats to Simon Yeps for driving. Congrats to all of our participants, but thanks again to Red River Technologies for sponsoring. And we ask you to hang on and listen to the conversation with the winners from today's race. Hey, thanks, Big Data Beard team. We are here with the winners of the virtual Race to Conf race at Circuit of the Americas, brought to you by our awesome partner, Red River. Congratulations, Simon Yep. You were standing in for our friends at Intel to drive their beautiful blue and green car, supporting the Optane memory solution. Tell me a little bit about what was the most exciting point of the race for you today?
Well, we started pretty tight, Tom and and I think we may have gone a few laps, and then I think you overcooked one of the turns, and from there was just put my head down and have a pretty boring race, to be honest.
That's awesome. Tom West, tell me, for you, I know you've put down some crazy fast laps. You've consistently been one of the fastest drivers out there. You've struggled with some, in-race incidents that have kept you out of the podium positions. Today, you're back on the podium. How does it feel, and what was the most exciting part of it for you today?
It's awesome. It's great just to feel second. I think to pole in qualifying was great, and a kind of a weird feeling to almost control the pack from there. Had a great first 3 laps, just having a bit of a duel with Simon. Like he says, overcooked it on the towards the back end of the circuit, and then just kind of saw him just going away in the sunset. But from there on, just keep head down, do work, stay out of trouble, and not go almost qualifying pace. But nice feeling to be back up here.
Excellent. Well, John, I tell you what, I literally spent the entire race looking at your beautiful bumper the entire time, and you were so consistent. Like, I honestly felt like you helped me run some of my best laps I've ever run at COTA. What was the most exciting part, or maybe the challenging part for you in today's race?
The most challenging part was actually watching the relative to see how much time I had in front of you. I know there was a couple of times I made a few mistakes, and I saw your nose trying to get in there. I think I learned from them, though, after that.
Well, you did great. So congratulations on P3.
Yeah. Now, Wesley, the last couple races you haven't done as well. What did you do after your race yesterday at Daytona to kind of recenter yourself and prepare for today? Obviously, it worked. So what were some of the things that you did?
Well, it's just kind of had a bit of a chill down for the day, have some time with the family, switch off, and have a few beers. And,
right, sometimes it loosens you up, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
don't drink and drive, but drink and sim is
don't
fine.
Drink and drive, but,
virtual racing is fine.
That's right.
Awesome. Now, Simon, you took the lead very early on in this race, and for 27, 28 minutes, you kept the lead. How did you kind of mentally do that so that you kept first place the entire time? Wesley was right behind you. Kind of what were you focusing on? What was kind of your strategy there?
I went into it just clean laps, especially through the first rhythm section where there's a S set that you can spin there really, really easily, and so. A lot of my practice earlier today was just being super, super safe there. And I noticed most people in practice were just spinning. So it's just putting your head down and just, easing it back a little, dialing off about 3 or 5%. You're not trying to go too hard. Because the last race I did, I was just going too hard. I was trying to eke out that little extra, and I probably didn't need to.
Yeah. And John, how does this race compare to the other races that you've done in this series? Do you like this one better, or how does this compare?
Absolutely not. I didn't like this one at all.
I thought I had a lot of fun with it from the 11th place position, but I had a lot of fun.
I found it was really difficult to those S's in particular, really, really difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this race was in the heart of Texas, and I know we talked about it a lot in the broadcast, but I have to ask you, as a native Texan that I am, I got to ask you, and you have to be nice here, what is your favorite thing about Texas? Maybe your favorite export, your favorite thing that Texas produced, your favorite Texas historical figure. I will take anything that is positive. Simon, you have to start with you. Favorite Texas thing?
Favorite Austin, particularly.
Austin?
Stevie Ray Vaughan, man.
Oh, good choice. Tom West, I know you're across the pond, but Texas is bigger than England and has more people. So maybe we should talk about it a little bit. What is your favorite thing about Texas?
So where I live in Sheffield in the UK, there's a restaurant that's famous for like barbecue, and they have a Texan barbecue sauce which is really nice. Yeah, I would probably go with that.
The barbecue. All right, John, how about
Absolutely.
you? What's your favorite export or thing from the state of Texas? And by the way, bonus points if you say Corey. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
I was gonna say he's been hoping that all of you say Corey. By the way, like that's what he was going for.
My vanity
Little
shows
fishing
no
action
bounds.
there.
I got to go with Tom and say I've seen some part of my team in Texas, and I've seen some of their barbecues, and it looks absolutely stunning.
I agree. Texas barbecue is the best in the world. The only proper barbecue is Texas brisket. So you all had the right answer, because Texas brisket and barbecue with Texas music is phenomenal. And I want to say a huge thank you, one, to you three who did an amazing job leading the race. I thank you, Brett, for joining me today. I want to thank our sponsor, Red River, for putting on an awesome race. We can't wait to be together again in person. We look forward to seeing you all virtually at .conf, and we hope you enjoy the next couple races. Tomorrow, we're going to have a really fun race at Tsukuba over in Japan. It is a wildly challenging track, and I hope you'll tune in to the Big Data Beard virtual race to .conf 20 tomorrow. We'll see you all then.